For weeks leading up to WWE Backlash, excitement buzzed like static electricity through arenas, social media platforms, and locker room corridors. Fans were prepared for drama, ready for chaos, and eager for surprises. But what they got was something far more transformative. What unfolded that night was not simply another pay-per-view spectacle, but the ignition point for a complete upheaval in WWE's hierarchy. The established power dynamic was fractured. The unthinkable occurred. Jeff Cobb made his earth-shattering debut, and in doing so, he didn't just shock the audience. He rewrote the very blueprint of what it means to hold power in WWE. Backlash had always been a high-stakes event, and this year was no different. A sold-out crowd packed the arena, their collective energy palpable from the opening bell. The lighting, the pyrotechnics, the thunderous roars. It was everything fans could want from a WWE event. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for the monumental shift that would reverberate through the entire organization before the night was over. On the card, one of the most hyped contests was the fatal four-way for the United States Championship. Promised action, it promised star power, and it promised potential carnage. LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, and Damian Priest, three of WWE's top-tier talents, were set to battle the reigning champion, Jacob Fatu. A relative newcomer to WWE but already a dominant force, Fatu had burst onto the scene with an intensity and brutality that drew immediate comparisons to the most destructive champions in wrestling history. In all his time with the company, Fatu had never been pinned. He had never submitted. Fans rallied behind him not just because of his ferocity but because they saw in him the future. Not just of the Bloodline but of WWE itself. As the match began, the electricity in the air was almost tangible. For warriors entered the ring, each with something to prove. McIntyre, with his war-hardened strength and explosive claymore. Damian Priest, a relentless brawler with sinister charisma. LA Knight, the slick talker with surprising agility and devastating execution. And Jacob Fatu, the chaos incarnate, unpredictable and explosive in every motion. The bell rang, and all hell broke loose. Each man collided with the other in a whirlwind of violence that could hardly be contained within the ring. Suplexes, superkicks, and power slams became the language of war that night. One particularly crowd-igniting moment came when Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu found themselves face-to-face for the first time during the match. Time seemed to stop as these two titans stood in the center of the ring. The audience erupted in deafening cheers, sensing the collision of sheer brute force that was about to unfold. They didn't disappoint. The exchange that followed was bone-jarring, fist after fist connecting with thunderous impact, drawing wincing reactions from fans watching live and at home. But in the end, it was Fatu who gained the upper hand, further cementing the belief that he wasn't just here to make noise. He was here to take over. As the match raged on, it looked like McIntyre was going to pull off a major win. He connected with a brutal claymore that sent LA Knight crashing to the mat. The pinfall seemed imminent, but before the referee could count, Damian Priest yanked McIntyre out of the ring, reigniting their long-standing animosity. The two spilled into the crowd, trading blows amidst the chaos, crashing into barricades, fans scattering to avoid the fury. Security scrambled to contain the fracas, but for all intents and purposes, both men had eliminated themselves from contention. That left only Fatu and Knight. Knight, bruised and barely able to stand, summoned every ounce of strength left in him. He set up for his finisher, hoping to catch Fatu off guard in a moment of desperation. The crowd, already spent from the prior onslaught, leaned forward in anticipation. It felt like Knight might actually pull off the impossible. And then it happened. The arena lights flickered. Gasps swept through the audience. A low, ominous hum replaced the crowd noise. From the curtain emerged Solo Sikoa, his trademark scowl even more menacing in the shadows. Fans erupted, shocked to see him outside of any official Bloodline business. But he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was a figure unfamiliar to many in the WWE Universe but instantly recognizable to hardcore wrestling fans. A hulking, intimidating man with a stone-cold gaze and the physique of a human wrecking ball. Jeff Cobb had arrived. The collective gasp became an explosion of noise. Fans who had followed Cobb's career across the globe, from his punishing run in Lucha Underground to his dominant presence in New Japan Pro Wrestling, knew what this meant. This wasn't a simple signing. This wasn't a cameo. Jeff Cobb's arrival meant something seismic. And his standing next to Solo Sikoa? That meant war. While Solo kept his icy stare fixed on the ring, Cobb moved like a silent predator. LA Knight, distracted by Solo's presence, never saw him coming. Cobb entered the ring and with spine-shattering efficiency, hoisted Knight into the air and delivered the tour of the islands. The crowd went berserk, unsure whether to boo or cheer, torn between awe and outrage. The referee had his back turned, distracted by Solo's presence. Jacob Fatu, ever the opportunist, pounced on the moment. He covered Knight. 1, 2, 3. Jacob Fatu retained his title, but the gold wasn't the story. What followed was. Backstage, Roman Reigns was shown watching the events unfold on a monitor. His face was unreadable, but his stillness betrayed the storm brewing within. 4 years, Reigns had been the architect of dominance in WWE. The head of the table, the tribal chief, the leader of the bloodline. But what he saw now was not merely an unsanctioned move, it was a threat, a mutiny. Solo Sikoa, once the silent enforcer of Roman's empire, had acted without approval. He had brought in a weapon, a monster of a man whose reputation for destruction preceded him. And it wasn't just that Cobb had interfered in a title match. It was that he had helped crown a champion who now owed his victory not to Roman's decree but to Solo's new alliance. Tension escalated with every step Roman took down the hallway. The cameras followed him as he stalked the corridors, shoulders squared, teeth clenched. His intention was clear: confront Solo, reassert dominance, set the hierarchy straight. But fate had other plans. Jeff Cobb struck like a wrecking ball. From behind, he crashed into Roman, sending the tribal chief careening into a concrete wall. Without pause, Cobb executed a series of suplexes, each one more savage than the last. He hurled Roman into equipment crates, denting metal and bone alike. The ambush was ruthless. Reigns had no time to mount a defense. Security swarmed in, but by the time they pulled Cobb away, the damage had been done. Roman Reigns lay crumpled and gasping, not just beaten, but dethroned in the most symbolic way possible. It wasn't just a sneak attack. It was a message. Cobb wasn't here to align with Roman. He was here to erase him. Questions flew like arrows in every direction. What did this mean for the bloodline? Was Solo now the de facto leader? Had he truly betrayed Roman? Or was he simply doing what he felt was necessary for survival in a world where loyalty gets you buried? Was Cobb a mercenary, a hired gun? Or was he the cornerstone of a new empire, handpicked to destroy the old regime? And what about Jacob Fatu? His retention of the title now felt less like a personal triumph and more like a political shift. Was he still loyal to Roman? Or had he quietly realigned himself with Solo's vision? Was he a pawn? Or was he in on the plan all along? The wrestling world was thrown into a tailspin. Social media erupted. Analysts, commentators, and fans debated what Cobb's arrival and Roman's destruction meant for the future. One thing became clear. The bloodline as we knew it was fractured, perhaps beyond repair. Roman Reigns had gone unchallenged for years. He was the final boss, the immovable object, the man whose word was gospel. But Jeff Cobb had just walked into the company and put Roman on his back in mere minutes. It wasn't just about physical dominance. It was about control. And now Cobb had it. Solo Sikoa stood beside Cobb, stone-faced, unreadable. In him, fans saw not just a rebellious enforcer but possibly a new kingmaker. For so long, he had been the silent one, the muscle in the background. But now he was making moves, forming factions, and altering destinies. He didn't need Roman's blessing anymore. He had found a weapon more dangerous than anyone in the bloodline had anticipated. In the locker room, whispers spread like wildfire. Wrestlers exchanged nervous glances. No one felt safe. Not with Cobb walking around unchained. Not with Roman's empire collapsing. The once solid structure of the bloodline now resembled a crumbling fortress, its foundations splintering as new forces claimed territory. Fans online began to speculate feverishly. Was a Roman versus Cobb match on the horizon? Would Roman come back stronger, more vicious, seeking revenge? Or had Solo already won by introducing a force Roman couldn't control? Was this the start of a new era? And what of betrayal within the betrayal? Would Cobb eventually turn on Fatu? Would he decide that even Solo was no longer necessary? In this volatile environment, Allegiances meant little, and power meant everything. The only certainty was that Jeff Cobb was not content to be a supporting character. He had come to WWE to lead, to dominate, and to leave a trail of shattered legends in his wake. Roman Reigns, once the indomitable ruler of WWE's narrative, had been made to look human, beaten, blindsided, humiliated. And in the wake of that beating, the sands of POW